Hello, and welcome to our webinar on self-care practices for ABA professionals. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from Erasmus, and I do want to go over a few things before we get started. First, you will all be eligible to earn one free CEU if you're watching this live and complete a few requirements. We're going to share 3 keywords throughout the webinar that you will need to jot down. After the webinar, I'm going to share an online form to complete, and you will type in the 3 keywords to confirm your participation. Recording will be sent out to all registrants. However, only live participants are eligible to earn the CEU. The first keyword is prioritize. So go ahead and jot down the word prioritize. I'll also put it in the chat in just a minute. Before I hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker, I want to share a little bit more about Erasmus. Erasmus is an ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early on in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral therapy services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them: behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, clinical directors, and all of you. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. Our team wanted to help ABA professionals focus on self-care this month, and we knew Robin would be the perfect guest speaker. With that said, I will let Robin introduce herself and get us started. So let me end my screen share.
Thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. Let me get my screen shared here so you can see the presentation for today. So welcome. I am so excited to be here. Like Amy said, my name is Robin. I am Robin Vasquez Gutierrez. I will be your guide today, and we are covering enhancing self-care practices for ABA professionals with a focus on mindfulness and acceptance and commitment therapy. Acceptance and commitment therapy is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I love talking about this anytime that I can. And we will also acknowledge, obviously, the challenges that our community faces in the field, as well as explore tools that we have accessible within ourselves to just create a more sustainable and fulfilling life and we'll explore evidence-based self-care strategies rooted in applied behavior analysis and acceptance and commitment therapy, like I mentioned. So overall, to promote well-being, build resilience, and prevent burnout. With that being said, I would like to just acknowledge this quick disclaimer and mention that the content shared on this platform, including information related to mindfulness, self-care, self-compassion, ACT, and breathwork, is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. So ultimately, it's not a substitute for professional therapy. If by engaging with this content, you acknowledge that you're responsible for your own well-being and agree to seek professional help when needed. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what's on the agenda for today. So I would love for you to get to know me a little bit better. So in the next couple of slides, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm doing this work. We'll talk a little bit about understanding burnout. I don't want that to be the main focus of today's session. So it's going to be just a quick reminder of what burnout is. It's a buzzword that we are hearing quite often in the field. What is self-care? What is mindfulness? How to develop a self-care plan. And I would love to lead you through some breath work, some breath awareness, and then have some time for some questions at the end. Before we dive into talking a little bit about me, what I would love to invite you to do is just take a moment here. Since we're going to do breath work at the end, I'd love for you to just take a moment, as long as you are not driving, you are in a safe location, and invite you to close your eyes and just check in with yourself. How are you doing mentally, physically, emotionally? No right or wrong. Just take a minute here to kind of check in on that and take a breath if that feels good and supportive to you. All right, thank you for joining me in that practice. One other thing I'd like to name is that while I am super passionate and excited to be talking about self-care strategies and mindfulness, I want to acknowledge that this information might not be brand new to you. It might not be groundbreaking. Um, in a lot of ways, when I put this together, I thought, how can we just get back to the basics? A lot of times we are so busy, especially us in the field. We are caregivers. That extends perhaps beyond our role in our own homes. We tend to take care of others before we prioritize our own well being. And so, my goal is that you walk away from here with some strategies that really work for you because there is not a one size fits all approach to self care and mindfulness. We get curious and explore and play around. So, thank you for joining me today. With that being said, I'd love to tell you just a little bit about who I am so you know why I'm so passionate about talking about self care, mindfulness, self compassion, self love, all of that good stuff. So, like I said, I'm Robin. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I have been certified since 2009. So, I have been in the field for quite a bit of time. In 2023, I made a change, or I took a pivot, and I started to use my behavior analytic principles as a mindsets, embodiment, and self-compassion coach. So what that means is I get to use the principles of human behavior, acceptance and commitment therapy, and this powerful modality of breath work to really help heart-centered helpers recharge. And if you are here, I think that you are a heart-centered helper. You have a big, kind, empathetic heart, always looking out for others. So let's dedicate this next hour to just taking care of yourself. So I think I've already harped on this part enough, but I could talk about self-care and work-life flow. I like to call it work-life flow over work-life balance all day. And one of the things that got me really passionate about this is I think that I too experienced burnout and I was really disconnected from my values and my why. And so this is why I made a change. And now I get to not only help myself prioritize myself so that I can be present for who and what matters to me, I can help others do the same. And we all have daily routines, we all have personal challenges. And I think one message I'd like to get across today is that we can do a better job of trying to go it alone. And so I'm hopeful to bring in some common humanity into today's talk and know that the struggle that you might be experiencing is probably very unique to you because you are your own being. However, we as a community, as people, as like I said, common humanity, we do experience some of the same challenges when it comes to prioritizing ourselves, taking care of ourselves, and silencing the voice of our inner critic that tends to get in the way. So with that being said, I'd like to just acknowledge that when we take time to create space in our schedules for ourselves and for others, we really get to start to revolutionize self-care and what this means. So I would love to kind of know a little bit more about you now that you know a little bit more about me. Amy, if we can get up the first poll question up, I would love to just get a sense of what brought everyone here today.
Absolutely. And bear with me one second. Okay.
No problem. So you'll see this poll pop up. If you don't mind selecting the answer that best suits why you are here, there's no right or wrong. I am just overall very curious.
And so I don't know right now, Robin, if you can see the answers coming in, but like they're coming in fast. Right now we got
Not yet.
okay,
Yeah.
I've got about 75, 80 participation. Once it stops moving, I'll hit end poll and then I can share the
Okay.
results that way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for participating.
Yes, great participation. Participation. Okay, slowing down. So I'll go ahead and end and share results.
Okay, so we've got kind of all over the place. And like I said, no right or wrong. So some of you, 9%, feeling burned out, need some strategies to cope. No, you are not alone. Some of you are interested in learning new self-care techniques. I love that. I hope that I have some of that to offer. And some want to just support their colleagues who are struggling with burnout. Again, like I said, I know that caregiver role, that caregiver hat, it extends to so many roles that you are that you have. So I love that you are caring for others, and then all of the above. So yeah, like I said, no right or wrong, but thank you. That gives me a really good sense of why you are here. So let's quickly talk about understanding burnout. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on burnout because we know what burnout is. But burnout simply isn't just simply feeling tired. It is this state of emotional, physical, mental exhaustion. It's caused by prolonged or excessive stress. And then the three key dimensions you can see here on the slide, we have emotional exhaustion. So this is when you might feel depleted of your emotional resources. Depersonalization, you might feel cynical or detached from your work or unmotivated. A reduced sense of accomplishment, just overall feeling like your work isn't meaningful. And so when these factors come together, they might create an overall feeling of hopelessness, and it might make it difficult to find the motivation to continue working effectively. And one thing that I know to be true is we can't just create motivation, action creates motivation. So when we can be proactive and set aside time to take care of ourselves, to connect with what matters, we will start to find that motivation. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. So, with that being said, we will also acknowledge how this applies to the ABA community. This slide here in this study by Slalowick in 2021, 72% of BCBAs and RBTs reported medium to high levels of burnout. 72%, that is quite a bit. And I also want to name that even prior to this 2021 study, in 2018, before COVID, before the world changed, there was also another survey where 2/3 of early career BCBAs, about 67%, experienced moderate to high levels of burnout. So we know that we're burning out. And what can we do about that? When, and we'll talk about that. I also want to name that this exhaustion, this burnout, it's going to lead to additional problems. Some of those we mentioned on the previous slide. But in addition, we might have shorter attention spans, increased emotions. I know that was true for me. Poor decision making. I know that was true for me. I wasn't always clear headed or able to make decisions in alignment with like my highest self or my highest and best energy. And so we know that those are not exactly qualities of a great leader. And if you are on this webinar, regardless of your role, I saw many of you BCBAs, but regardless of your role, you are all leaders. We have people who are looking up to us. And so this is why it's vital that our efforts in leading this self-care movement is sustainable, because if we burn out, it's going to just be replicated. We know we know about modeling behavior. It's going to be replicated by our staff, by our colleagues, by the families we support, by the children, and of course others just in our circle of influence. So in order to really create this culture of self-care, we have to be willing to model taking care of ourselves. And I know that can be difficult, so we'll talk about that too as in some of the slides coming up. That being said, let's talk about what is self-care. We can define this in a variety of ways, but let's not overcomplicate it, right? I think the simplest way to explain it is exactly this. Self-care is literally that, taking care of yourself and addressing your needs. I would extend a little bit further to also include it's the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness. So I'd like to repeat that again, an active role, not a passive role. So we do have to do some work to proactively put a plan in place and prioritize taking care of our overall health and well-being. I'm going to take one pause and take a sip here. All right. So we'll talk about the benefits of self-care before we get into some strategies for how to cultivate more self-care into your day-to-day routines. But self-care helps improve overall health. I think that is, like in the beginning when I mentioned, this might not be new or groundbreaking. You know this, you know that self-care is going to improve your overall health. We we know that it can help lower stress, which is reduced to, or which is linked rather to reducing blood pressure, improving sleep. And then there's self care practices like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones. And I want to be clear that is not an exhaustive list, but just some examples. This has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety, which can lead to overall better health. Improved or self-care helps improve physical well-being. So regular exercise can be a key component of self-care. It will strengthen the heart and lungs, which can be really supportive too as we are breathing and getting oxygen to our brain. Can reduce the risk of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and overall physical fitness. Self care can boost mood and happiness. I don't know about you, but I know speaking for myself, when I am not taking good care of myself and I'm disconnected from who and what matters, I'm disconnected from my gratitude, I don't have a great mood. I'm not necessarily the most fun person to be around, and I want that. I want to bring my highest and best energy to the communities, to the people that I work with and that I get to interact with. So, engaging in activities that you enjoy, such as spending time with loved ones, practicing gratitude, like I mentioned, expressing your creativity, these are all self care practices that can really increase the dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain, which will lead to that feeling of happiness and well being. The self care can also improve resilience and coping skills. So, self care helps you manage stress effectively, develop healthy coping mechanisms, which I saw, about 9% of us are looking for, and more. Build resilience in the face of challenges. And this really just translates to having a better ability to handle difficult situations and maintain overall well being. And one thing I can name is as we work in the ABA community, we know that this work can be challenging, that there can be some difficulties that we face. And so, again, the better we take care of ourselves, the better we can show up into these roles. Now, you might be thinking, well, this all sounds great, Robin, but how do I do that? How do I do that? I'm already so busy. Great question. And I promise we'll get there. But I still want to talk a little bit more about its importance. So, you may also know this too, but self care boosts self esteem. Treating yourself with kindness can help you see yourself in a more positive light. There are so many ways that self care can really manifest and boost our self esteem. So, let me just talk about a few. Self compassion, like I said, something that's super near and dear to my heart. I don't think I learned how to be kind and compassionate towards myself until I was in my 30s. And so I have a lot of history, right, of kind of negative self talk, self limiting beliefs that really led me to believe that I wasn't worthy of this self compassion. But now that I know different, I've firsthand experienced how treating myself like I would treat a friend or treating myself with kindness when I make a mistake really boosts my self esteem and my confidence to be able to even be here today and share this message with you. So, self care encourages a shift towards self compassion, like I mentioned. So, with treating yourself with kindness, with compassion during any challenges, you start to build more of a positive self image. So, like I mentioned, we all have this voice of, I like to call it an inner critic. Some people say just a little voice, some people say it's a feeling, whatever's true for you. When you start to treat yourself with kindness, that voice can become minimized. It can become less harsh. This can allow you to accept and appreciate yourself more fully. Another way that self care boosts self esteem is by investing in yourself. And I will also talk about low investment options. We don't have to spend a ton of money when we are investing in ourselves or taking care of ourselves. But regardless of the dollar amount, when we invest in ourselves, whether it's time, resources, energy, effort, we send ourselves a powerful message that we are worthy and deserving. And so this investment in our well-being, it reflects an appreciation for yourself. It leads to a stronger sense of value and self worth. All right. Like I said, I can go on and on about the benefits of self care, especially related to improving our focus. And another thing that I know to be true about the ABA community, ABA professionals, you wear many hats. And so you do need to be focused and be able to attend to a task at hand until you get to the next task. And so let's discuss just a few of the ways that self care can really help you improve your focus, reduce stress and anxiety. I sense a theme here. And one thing that I know to be true is I talk to many of the people that I support is stress and anxiety is like the number one symptom that they would like to get rid of. And we won't necessarily eliminate stress and anxiety. However, with self care, with self compassion, with self love, we can start to minimize this anxiety and stress. So, when you're stressed, your brain really struggles to filter out distractions and focus on the task at hand. So, these self care practices like meditation, deep breathing, spending time in nature, again, whatever it is that serves you, can effectively reduce the stress and anxiety, which can just help you create a sense of inner peace and a more kind of calm focus. Now, I don't know about you too. I have decision fatigue, and I would imagine that might resonate with many of you. We are constantly making decisions, little decisions to big decisions and everything in between. So when we practice self-care, we can have more mental clarity that can enhance our ability to analyze information and focus on the task at hand. If you recall, I mentioned that one of the reasons I pivoted and I shifted into this work is because I didn't think I was making decisions in alignment with my highest and best energy, in alignment with my values. And I think that I had a lot of decision fatigue. And now that I'm really prioritizing self care, taking care of myself, I can make decisions one at a time and usually 99% of the time feel pretty confident with the decision that I'm making. So I love talking about that one. It's a hard one, right? It's not necessarily tangible, but I love to describe it because I think that's something we can all use more of in the line of work that we do. Enhanced energy levels. So feeling drained makes it difficult to concentrate. Self-care includes, healthy eating habits, regular exercise, things that bring you joy. These practices increase energy levels, again, boosting your ability to focus for longer periods of time. Who doesn't want that? And Amy, we'll get ready for that second poll question coming up. So I would love to know, now that I've told you all of the benefits of self-care. And again, you might be thinking, well, great, Robin, get to the good stuff. How do I do this? How do I prioritize it? I'd love to ask you a question first. And that question is, who gets a side of guilt with their serving of self-care if we're putting it into food terms? But you'll see this poll question pop up here.
I am working on it, and it is so
Okay,
oh, here we go. Polls and it moved on me, but let me
no problem. Thank you so
back
much.
Q2. Okay, so it is launched.
Wonderful. We'll give you all a couple of minutes here to think about this and answer. Again, it's anonymous, but I'd love to know, no right or wrong, but where are we at as a community here?
Okay, great job responding. Go ahead and share the results.
I love it. Okay, so we have a variety of responses. Like I said, no right or wrong. I love the 3% of people here who are saying never self-care is a priority. I imagine you have a plan, you're proactive. Some of you, 14% of you, rarely feel guilty. You can manage it. 31% feeling guilty, if things are busy. 29% feels note that taking time for yourself feels selfish, and 23% struggle to prioritize self-care. So we're kind of even here across the board. So that makes sense. but this is pretty common.
And Robin,
So,
I won't
yes.
call out on the chat the name, but we have someone that says they even felt guilty about taking time to attend the CEU. I'm sure that
Oh,
in a busy BCBA world, something that
yeah.
reminds people.
Oh,
So,
thank you, Amy, for sharing that. And I do think that's important to name. And whoever wrote that comment, I could almost guarantee you you're not alone with that. Like Amy said, you are all very busy. So thank you for being here. And one thing to also name is this is a step towards self-care by learning about how to prioritize it. So so excited for you. Everyone is on their own journey, but so much to always learn. I'm still on this journey myself. Okay, so getting back to it, as we see here, often saying yes to ourselves means that we're saying no to other people. And one thing I know to be true about the ABA community is we have big hearts and we want to help everyone. And so sometimes that feels selfish, like, 23%, I think, maybe mentioned. Our choice of words might also inadvertently cause self-care shame. And what I want to make clear about that is I'm talking about the words we speak to ourselves. So this is also where we can start getting into some ACT, if you will. But psychological flexibility is a big part of acceptance and commitment therapy. I actually want to talk about psychological inflexibility here because guilt is a fused thought. And what I mean by that is if you might be believing the thought, in quotes, I shouldn't be taking this time for myself. You might be believing that is a true and absolute thought. What ACT encourages is diffusing or unhooking from those thoughts, such as recognizing them as just that, as thoughts, not facts. And I can't get in too much we'd be here all day if I was talking about acceptance and commitment therapy and all of the core processes. But one thing that might serve you is as you think about the thoughts that are coming up and you ask yourself if it's true or if it's helpful, and regardless of the answer, imagining those thoughts passing by as clouds in the sky or leaves on a stream, two very common metaphors from acceptance and commitment therapy. Another thing that can really come up here is a values disconnect. So, when you feel guilty about self care, it suggests that there might be a disconnect from your core values. Self care is essential for maintaining your well being. We talked a lot about that. And it likely aligns with your values. If you are here, it likely aligns with your values. I'm not going to say what your values are, but I assume that you would like to prioritize taking care of yourself and your well being. So ACT can help you identify and live by your values. And then, of course, mindfulness and acceptance. We will talk a little bit more about mindfulness for sure. But self care allows you to practice mindfulness, being present in the moment, observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Another thing that I know to be true is as humans, we often live in the past, either ruminating on the past mistakes, conversations, situations that have come up, trying to play out how we could have done it better or the mistakes that we made. Or we're so far into the future thinking about things that could be or the what ifs that we're missing out on the present moment. So, this mindfulness technique can really help you live in the present moment. It's about accepting your needs and understanding how it's going to benefit your overall functioning. With that being said, I talked about inflexibility. On the flexibility side, for psychological flexibility, engaging in self care can demonstrate that you're choosing actions aligned with your values, even if they conflict with these unhelpful thoughts like guilt. So, ACT emphasizes choosing behaviors that emphasizes your well being. I would love to debunk some self care myths. The first one, these are obviously not an exclusive list or an exhaustive list, I should say, but some of the common myths or challenges that I hear people share with me. Myth number one, self care is only for those who are struggling with their mental health. This is not true. Self care is preventative maintenance for everybody, just like taking care of your car to keep it running smoothly. Self care really helps you avoid that burnout that we talked about at the beginning and function at your best. It's about filling your own cup before it gets empty, not waiting for a crisis. Myth number two, self-care has to be done alone. If you remember in the very beginning, I talked about community and connection. So the truth here is connection is a vital part of our well-being. Spending time with loved ones, joining a support group, or just even having a good conversation can be incredibly nourishing for our mind, body, and soul. Self-care can be social. And myth number three, self-care is expensive. So it can be, right? And comparison culture is going to interfere here. Social media is going to tell you that you've got to be doing the massages, the facials, the going to the gym, the having the retreats. Of course, those things are nice if they align with your values. But for some people, that's not self-care and it's not always accessible. So I want to make sure that you walk away from here knowing that some of the most simple things that we can do in our day to day can be the best forms of self care. So, often the most powerful self care practices are free. A walk in nature, mindful breathing, or creating a gratitude list can really do wonders for your mental and emotional well being. Even other small activities like reading a book or taking a relaxing bath can be self care. And this is where I mentioned I don't have an exhaustive list for you, but just start thinking about what are the things that I really enjoy? How can I build them into my day to day? How can I keep my costs low and really start to fill my own cup and start to think about what does that look like for you? And it's going to be different for everybody. All right. Amy, I should have warned you. We got our third poll coming up, but I can keep talking
Oh,
because we're going to talk about how self care doesn't have to be expensive. And I would love to know with this poll's coming up,
yeah,
what the
I've
business.
got it
Sorry,
now.
go
You
ahead.
want me to go ahead and
Okay.
launch it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
So this one is, in your opinion, what is the biggest obstacle preventing you from prioritizing self care? Again, no right or wrong. I imagine we'll see a variety of answers across this poll, but it will give us a good sense of where the community is at here.
Okay.
All right. So 50% lack of time. Absolutely. I know about that. And one thing I know to be true is we are not getting more time in our day. However, we can start to prioritize our tasks in alignment with our values. We can take tiny sips of self care. And what I mean by that is just doing one small thing each day, 1%. We don't have to strive for perfection. Again, we've got some feeling guilty coming up, difficulty setting boundaries, not knowing what self-care practices would work best for you. Absolutely. It's a practice. And so it's about trial and error and figuring out, which one really does kind of light me up, which one gives what energizes me. That was something I didn't know when I felt burnt out. I didn't actually pay attention to what were the tasks or the things on my plate that were energizing me and what were the things that were draining me. I was just trying to do all the things because I thought I had to do all the things. And turns out I don't have to do all the things. So that connection with our values can be really important here. Thank you all for voting here. This is super helpful. So like I said, self-care doesn't have to be expensive. Can talk a little bit more about some simple self-care practices. Again, I will talk a little bit slow here so you can start to visualize or think about what are the things for you. There's 102 people on this webinar. But what are the things for you in isolation that you think are in alignment with your values, are important to you, and could be a good starting point to start that 1%. I'll give you some examples. Again, not an exhaustive list. Practicing meditation to avoid information overload. Work out to stay active. Setting times for work and rest. So setting boundaries. That can be really challenging in this line of work. Everyone needs a little bit of us at various times. It can be really difficult to set those boundaries. But I would encourage you to really think about what are the things that I need to get done today. We have to proactively plan. We can't just wish and hope. So planning in advance What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that I need to be doing each day in order to take care of myself? What are the things that I need to be doing each day in order to move along in my job? What are the things I need to be doing each day to be contributing to my family? Think about those things as you wear various hats. Reaching out to friends. Now, this may not always be a self care practice. So that's where I said, find out what serves you, what energizes you. If reaching out to your friends creates more stress because then you're like, oh, I have to get back to these text messages and I'm behind, then that's not what's going to work for you. But if you find like, I just really need to vent to somebody, or I need someone to hear me, or I just need someone to hold space for me, that's when you can use that kind of strategy. And then eat well balanced meals, of course, with occasional treats and things that serve you. You get to make your own decisions there. But we know that the food that we eat, drinking water, all of that to nourish our body and take care of our overall health. This slide is very simple, very basic. I know it's not exhaustive, but I hope that I talked slow enough that you could think about even one thing that you want to give a try starting today. All right, this slide continued. So let's talk about how ABA applies here. So the principles of ABA can be a really powerful tool for building self-care routines by identifying antecedents, the triggers that lead to stress. You can start to develop targeted self-care behaviors to intervene and prevent burnout. And additionally, by reinforcing yourself for engaging in these self-care behaviors, which I know is hard, the self-monitoring piece is the hardest part, but again, tiny sips, 1% at a time, start to reinforce yourself. You can increase the likelihood that you'll continue to engage in these really important behaviors. Some other practical strategies that don't break the bank: mindfulness, self compassion, setting boundaries, planning ahead, identifying your values. I might be starting to sound like a broken record here, and that's on purpose. Also, want to name this is not real data, but I thought it was cool to have the graph here. So it doesn't have to be these percentages. But acceptance and commitment therapy can be really useful here too. Accepting thoughts and feelings without judgment, identifying your values that I mentioned, identifying what's important to you, and then that commitment piece, taking action to live in alignment with those values, to live a rich and meaningful life, starting 1% at a time. We don't have to be at the destination right now. In fact, I would encourage you to treat the journey like the destination. So mindfulness, a skill for psychological flexibility. Mindful breathing, we want to focus on the sensation of our breath entering and leaving our body. Mindful movement, you can pay attention to your body as you move, such as during walking or yoga. I personally love walking. That's one of my favorite forms of movement. And again, that's very personal to me. But one thing that I've started as a practice is some habit stacking, so that for the first 2 minutes of my walk, I'm not on my phone, I'm not listening to music. I am with myself, with my body, and noticing how I'm breathing. And that too is very powerful, living in the present moment. Mindful observation, noticing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. Of course, we've been kind of programmed and trained to, suck it up, buttercup, be a big girl. So when we hear things like this, like I've heard throughout my life, it comes with some shame or some guilt, but we get to retrain and reprogram, create new neural pathways around this and know, okay, this is just a thought. It might not be true. And I lost the rest of that thought, so I'll just move on here. But from an ACT perspective, mindfulness is a key for developing this psychological flexibility. It really allows us to diffuse from those unhelpful thoughts. We can observe those thoughts without getting hooked by them. All right. So I would love to talk about creating a self-care plan. And this is where I'm hopeful that you'll get kind of the most value here, is like, how can you identify and create a self-care plan? Just like the clients that you work with, just like the families that you support, just like the staff that you work with, we have plans in place. We have behavior plans. We have performance plans. We are all about planning. But one thing I know to be true is we often forget to plan for ourselves. So you can see the steps here. They're not in, of course, you can do them in order. You can, again, make it your own. I am not necessarily saying that it's a one size fits all and it has to be done this way. I want to talk about a self-care plan. Before I do, I'm going to give you the second code word or keyword, and that is self. SELF, self. So, a self-care plan is this fail-safe plan created by you and filled with your favorite self-care activities, important reminders, and just ways to activate your self-care community. So, I want to talk about why it's important to create this plan. So it's a preventative measure. We know all about being proactive, but by designing this roadmap that's unique to you, you can, um, not only when you are in moments of crisis, all of the time being proactive, you're directing your best self to reflect on what you may need and have access to. The reality is that only you know how intense your stress levels can get and what resources are available to you. Having a plan, we know this, again, not groundbreaking, but having a plan takes the guesswork out of what to do, where to turn in these moments of crisis. And from a mindfulness point of view, it helps you respond instead of react to the situation at hand. Let that one sink in again. Respond over reaction. When you have a plan in place, you'll feel more in control of your circumstances and it won't feel as chaotic. It also makes it easier to share your plan with others when you have one. A self-care plan helps you stay the course. You might find that it's far easier to stick to your personal care strategy and avoid falling into the trap of making excuses. We can all get busy. I know other things come up. And of course, if it's a priority, it's a priority. But when you have non-negotiables in place for taking care of you, you get to also prioritize that. It helps you establish a routine, ensuring that you and anyone who is a part of your self-care plan just don't wind up working in isolation or against one another. You can check in with each other, you can have accountability buddies, and just share the responsibility to support one another. Again, we are all in this together, and this is where the common humanity piece comes in. You can schedule these self-care activities. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. So I don't know if that's true for you, but I get it plugged in. Even my walks, I have times in the day where I'm going to walk. Does it always work out according to plan? No. But I shouldn't say always, do I get it in? Yes, it's a priority for me. So whatever it is for you, plan it in advance. You can utilize these ACT strategies. Again, I know we talked very kind of broadly about them, but just start. You don't have to know it all today. Start with that first step of just noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Track your progress. We know we love data. So take the data, however it serves you, and adjust. And don't forget to celebrate your wins along the way. So celebrating your wins is so important, big or small. But again, you can find ways to celebrate them on your own, celebrate them with your community, whatever feels good and serves you. With all of this being said, I would love to invite everyone into a breathwork practice. So I am a breathwork facilitator in training. I'll actually finish my certification here in a couple of weeks. And breathwork has been a very powerful modality for embodiment and truly practicing mindfulness, feeling the sensations in my body. So I would love to share this practice with you. I do need to make a disclaimer. Please do not participate in this while you are driving or if you are submerged in water. So if you are in the tub or a pool, I know it happens. So please do not participate in this unless you are safe. And with that being said, it's also an invitation to participate. So take what serves you and kind of leave the rest. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment so I can share my sound and lead you through a little bit of a breathwork drop-in experience here. Don't worry, there's no right or wrong way. I'm actually going to ask you to keep your breath pattern the same, so you don't need to make any modifications to it. So we just get to breathe together. One moment here, and I'll make sure you can hear this. All right. Amy, if you can't hear it, let me know, but otherwise I've got it going.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Taking a moment to just settle in here, knowing I can't see you, but you can take this time to close your eyes if that feels good. to find a soft gaze, whatever feels supportive to you, just letting yourself settle in here to the space. Noticing the support beneath you, whatever it is that you're sitting on, the support of a chair, the bed, a couch, the floor. Noticing how this surface supports you, and that beneath this surface, there's the support of the ground and the support of the earth here. An invitation to kind of root down, anchor yourself here in the present moment, giving yourself this time to just breathe. Letting the breath circulate in the body. Perhaps noticing any areas of tension or tightness. Breathing into that space. Really just letting that breath expand to every cell in your body. Finding a mantra for today's practice. Whatever it is that serves you, perhaps repeating to yourself, with each inhale, I breathe in worthiness. With each exhale, I let go of doubt, of guilt, of shame. Allowing this breath to really move throughout the body and just notice. Noticing the rise of your chest and the fall of your abdomen as you breathe. If your mind starts to wander, know that that's okay. Bring your awareness back to your breath, back to your body. An invitation to bring your awareness to that tiny space between the nostrils. Just noticing the air as you breathe. Does it feel cool? Does it feel warm? Is there a texture? Perhaps even a color you visualize as you breathe. An invitation to let go of what is no longer serving you. Perhaps what is interfering with your highest and best energy. And if it serves you, an invitation to visualize here your highest self, one in which self-care is a priority, where self-compassion is a non-negotiable. And one where mindfulness is a practice. Just noticing what's here. That's it. You got it. Taking one or two more deep breaths here. Perhaps sealing in this intention, this mantra, this desire to prioritize yourself, to take care of yourself, letting this intention, this desire move with you throughout the day, throughout the week. Knowing you can always come back to this practice, you can always breathe. Perhaps just checking in to see if anything's shifted. And that regardless of the answer, you are exactly where you're meant to be. If your eyes were closed, an invitation to start to call in some light and just noticing the space around you. Noticing how it held you, how it kept you grounded as you breathe. Thanking your body, thanking your mind for all of its hard work. And if it serves you, an invitation to even give yourself a little gentle hug, gentle squeeze, starting to foster and build that self-compassion, self-love. Let's take one deep breath in together as a group, sharing our collective energy. Deep breath in, holding that breath at the top for just a moment. And on the exhale, letting it all go. Thank you so much for sharing in that practice. That was a very quick drop in. I do have something to share here related to breathwork. So let me reshare my screen here. So thank you so much for practicing that with me. I have some quick references here. I'd like to acknowledge and name the studies, the research that I quoted from Solowak and colleagues, ACT resources. I am a huge fan of Russ Harris, The Happiness Trap and ACT Made Simple, and then Pause Breathwork Techniques. There are also some resources for you. So Mindful is an organization that offers a variety of resources on mindfulness. You can find them at mindful.org. And then there's some apps you can use: Calm, Headspace, Smiling Mind. Again, you find what works for you. No one size fits all approach. I wish you the best in your self-care journey. I would love to invite you to follow along on my journey. I am on Instagram at coachrobin_. You can also take a picture of this QR code. If you DM me the word self-care by 5/17, you will be eligible for access to a complimentary breathwork session where we can dive a little bit deeper. It'd be a little bit more than what you just experienced, but might be powerful for you. Again, just an invitation if that serves you. I'll leave that up for a moment. Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
so
Amy.
much, Robin. That was fantastic. I went ahead, our last keyword is care. So I went ahead and put that in the chat. I'm also going to go ahead and put the form in the chat. And if you wouldn't mind, Robin, if I could just share my screen real
Of
quick.
course.
Oh, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you want to connect, you can always reach out to me directly at amy@hirasmus.com. You can book a demo if you'd like to learn more about how our platform can help you focus on the child in front of you. And we also do have on our content library under premium, we do have some ACT programs for adults and adolescents that you can actually use on yourself. So you could do it for self-care, or you could get a group of your coworkers together and do a little self-care group and go through some of those exercises that way. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here, but we will stay on. If you all have any questions, we would be happy to answer any questions.